Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1923B, and today's date is July 22nd, 2019, and the title of the episode is Be Ready, B-2 Stealth Bomber Roundup Begins Soon. Now, before we get started, we've been talking about protecting your devices, protecting yourself from big tech. I mean, it's the year 2019, and if you're not using a VPN by now on your desktop, tablet, or mobile device while you browse the internet, then you're really exposing yourself to a lot of potential danger. Here, let me show you how easy this is. Click Connect. Once I'm connected, my IP address is now different than before. See? This month, Virtual Shield is offering a 4th of July celebration special. Sign up for free for 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN and see what the hype is all about. You have nothing to lose. Click the link below. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, what we're watching right now, we're watching the deep state sweat it out. We're watching the deep state panic. We're watching the deep state maneuver in stupid ways. Because Trump and the Patriots, what they are doing is they're putting the screws to the deep state. Each and every single day, they are putting out more and more facts, truth. And the deep state, all they have left is panic and try to spin all stories. And I do believe that we're reaching a critical point where all of the truth and all the facts that are coming out, those are now overriding the deep state propaganda, the hoax, and all they have left is to try to spin what is coming. And they are in a panic, and they have nothing left. They know what's coming, and they're trying to maneuver a way out of this, which is impossible. It's going to fail, because you can't use propaganda and lies to fight against the facts, documentation, videos, recordings. It's just not possible. Propaganda only works when you don't have the other side presenting the facts. When you have one side just spewing out propaganda, putting it out there, and nobody counters it. That's the only way it works. Once you have others and that come out and say, no, wait a minute. You said this, but look at the facts here. Look at the documentation. It counters what you said. That's when the propaganda fails. And we're seeing this. I mean, think of Jussie Smollett and these these racist hoax crimes from MAGA and all of this. I mean, that was debunked because information came out that it wasn't real. It was put on. It was staged. Now, the mainstream media and everyone else made it seem like it was real. Everyone was backing him. And then when the facts came out, it fell apart. I mean, look at the incident when State Representative Eric Thomas, where she said this white man told her to go back to where you came from. Now, Thomas is an African-American Democrat state lawmaker. She was at Publix grocery store and was checking out at the express lane with too many items when the man confronted her. Thomas posted a tearful and heart-rending video on social media following the confrontation. And then all of a sudden, mainstream media picked it up and they wrote the headlines without doing any research or anything like that. They just went with the story. And the accused man, Eric Sparks, well, he told a different story. He said, no, this is not the way it happened. She is lying. He admitted to calling her a bitch instead. And he is a Democrat of Cuban descent. He actually told her to back off or he'll call the police. Take a listen to what he said.
How you made me feel yesterday. If you know how you made my daughter feel.
Back off before I call the police.
Call the police right now. And if you know how you made me feel yesterday. If you know how you made my daughter feel.
Back off before I call the police.
Call the police right now.
And as you can see, this entire story that she was telling is completely falling apart. But once again, the mainstream media didn't do the research to see what really happened. They just put out headlines. Chuck Ross tweeted out the following. Unbelievable. This is New York Times headline. But then down at the bottom of the piece, they quote Thomas acknowledging that the guy didn't tell her to go back anywhere. Well, if that's the whole story, why isn't that the headline? Actually, it shouldn't even be a story, actually. But they use the headline, that's what people read, and then down below in the article, they tell the truth, a little piece of it. But why is this even a story then? Why even put that headline out there if it's not true? Think about it. The mainstream media is continually putting out fake stories, especially about Trump and the squad. It seems the Washington Post has put out another fake story. Trump tweeted out the following. The Amazon Washington Post front page story yesterday was total fake news. They said advisors wrote new talking points and handed him reams of opposition research on the 4 congresswomen. Now, really, does that sound like me? What advisors? There were no talking points, except for those stated by me, and reams of paper were never given to me. It is a made-up story meant to demean and belittle. The Post had no sources. The facts remain the same, that we have 4 radical left congresswomen who have said very bad things about Israel and our country. And again, Trump has maneuvered these 4 into the spotlight on purpose. They are now the faces of the Democratic Party. This was done on purpose. This was part of the plan. He's just going to let them go ahead and destroy themselves. Why interfere with an enemy while they're destroying themselves? Because Trump and the Patriots, they know once they made them the face, they would just push it all along all by themselves, exposing who they really are. Now let's talk about Mueller and spying. Now, it's been widely reported that the Obama administration had a spy working inside the Trump campaign. The informant, Stephen Halper, that is the person. He was paid a total of $411,000 in 2016 and 2017 for work with the U.S. government that included spying on the Trump campaign. Jacob Wohl discovered that Stephen Halper was paid $282,000 in September of 2016 for research and development in the social sciences and humanities. Another Twitter sleuth identified a second payment to Halper in the amount of $129,000, making the total payments to Halper more than $400,000. Now, Eric Felton reported at Real Clear Politics that Halper managed to collect $1 million from the Department of Defense Office of Net Assessment over 4 years for work that appears to be barely supervised and of dubious value. Paul Sperry tweeted out the following. Breaking. Pentagon's Office of Net Assessment has until Thursday to turn over to the Senate of all records related to the CIA FBI spy Steph Halper's suspicious $1 million contracts, which include 3 trips to London in 2016 and interviews with former Russian diplomats and intelligence officers. And you can see that more and more of this information is being brought out to the public. For the public to say, yeah, what is this? Why was he an informant? Why was he paid like this? What was he working on? I mean, let's look at the Flynn case, for example. That whole thing is completely falling apart. This is coming out of the conservative treehouse. The status of the Eastern District of Virginia case against former partner Michael Flynn, Bijan Riafkian, is completely bizarre. Apparently, U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr has not engaged into this case, and the current status is a complete mess. The head-scratching Farah case was tenuous from the outset, as the prosecution was arguing a rather odd legal interpretation of Farah statutes, and now the Department of Justice could be handed a dismissal, even if the jury returns a guilty verdict. Yes, when you stretch legal interpretation beyond evidence, it's a mess. The current arguments surround jury instructions where the Department of Justice is requesting their earlier claims of Rafkian as an agent of foreign government be dropped because there is no evidence, and simultaneously arguing that Rafkian didn't have to break the law surrounding Farah in order to be found guilty of breaking the Department of Justice interpretation of the law surrounding Farah. Wait, what? That is very confusing. Well, the judge is confused. The judge wants clarification, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Let me just continue here. Despite an earlier filing, the Department of Justice prosecutor never did call Michael Flynn Jr. as a witness, nor Michael Flynn himself. Additionally, after the prosecution finished their presentation, the defense informed Judge Anthony Trenga in oral arguments they also have no intention of calling Michael Flynn. While the case is ongoing in oral arguments about how to instruct the jury, the entire sketchy construct is being debated by the judge, prosecution, and defense. The Department of Justice is arguing the Flynn Intel Group, FIG, is guilty of doing something even though the Department of Justice can't prove the FIG intended to do something unlawful. The Department of Justice also admits the government took no action as an outcome of the accidentally wrong information, simply that the information itself was accidentally false and therefore unlawful. Here's how Technofog sees it. The Department of Justice position on Section 951D4 is that the legal commercial transaction exception does not include 1. Illegal activities, 2. Activities that are prohibited but technically not illegal. Under this theory, there is a potential 951 criminal culpability for a minor FARA violation, such as late registration or the omission of some facts. Now, consider the 2016 OIG report on the NSD's enforcement of FARA and how many lobbyists would have been exposed to Section 951 due to their sloppy registrations. For example, 57% of the new registered agents' contracts reviewed by OIG were not registered timely. My biggest takeaway is the Department of Justice position that the conduct need only be prohibited. I'm assuming this is consistent with how they've applied Section 951 in the past. That would have included all the lobbyists doing work on behalf of foreign countries, foreign individuals, or foreign corporations who didn't have airtight FARA paperwork, not just the material omissions lies alleged in Rafkian case. The Department of Justice prosecutor basically admits this: any conduct that was in violation of the FARA statute, whether or not prosecuted or prosecutable, renders that conduct not a legal commercial transaction. Key point being whether or not prosecutable. Now, the Department of Justice position is specific and purposeful because they are trying to avoid later scrutiny about their use of FARA violations to gain FISA surveillance warrants. That is to say, the Department of Justice National Security Division intentionally never prosecuted for FARA violations because they use the appearance of FARA violations to get FISA electronic surveillance warrants against any DC entity they wanted to watch. To get a FISA, they have to assert evidence of working as an agent of foreign power. Now, on Friday, the day after the prosecution finished delivering all their evidence, the prosecution began arguing to remove that predicate claim. The Department of Justice no longer wants any language in the jury instructions that mentions being an agent of the government of Turkey. The reason the Department of Justice wants to strike the agent of foreign power, that language, is because they presented no evidence to prove it, nor did the Department of Justice present any evidence to prove a conspiracy. Nothing, zippo, zilch. Technofog tweeted out the following. We have the transcript from the U.S. vs. Rafkian Flynn Intel Group FARA case, hearing on jury instructions. What does the Department of Justice say about instructing the jury on FARA violation? We really haven't figured out the best way to go about doing that. Let me continue with Technofog. Counsel for defendant Rafkian makes an excellent point in response. If the government can't articulate the illegal commercial transaction now, how is the defendant supposed to figure that out on his own back in 2016? He can't. The judge is confused. There is no case. It is falling apart. Now, the other day, we reported on Julian Assange and Seth Rich, and we talked about Ellen Ratner, who reported that Russia did not hack the DNC because she spoke to Julian Assange about getting the emails, and Julian Assange told her that, no, I was speaking to someone from the inside. I didn't speak to Russians. The Russians didn't do it. It was an inside job. Well, the conservative treehouse dug up the video. We have the video. Take a listen.
Went after Hillary.
WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks. Yeah, excuse me.
By the way, just FYI,
I got to take a WikiLeaks.
I spent 3 hours with Julian Assange on Saturday at the Ecuadorian Embassy in London.
Listen to this. Go ahead.
Well, I did.
Yeah.
But one of the things he did say is that the leaks were not from, they were not from the Russians. They were an internal source from the Hillary campaign or from somebody that knew Hillary, an enemy. He does not think they're from Russians. And he said Russia got credit for something WikiLeaks should have gotten credit for.
Yeah.
And as you can see, she is very clear. It was not the Russians. It was someone from the inside. And Julian Assange has this information. He is the source. Think about what is happening with Julian Assange, with the charges that are brought against him, about the extradition, about Julian Assange being the source. He has the information. The question is, since Ella Ratner has said this and she says she's interviewed Julian Assange, how come the Mueller team never decided to ask her any questions or pursue this? Wouldn't you think this was important? Of course it was, but that wasn't Mueller's mission. His mission was to protect the Clintons, to protect the deep state. Now, yesterday we talked about how Senator Chuck Schumer was going to head down to the border. Trump tweeted out the following: Senator Chuck Schumer has finally gone to the southern border with some Democrat senators. This is a great thing. Nearby, he missed a large group of illegal immigrants trying to enter the U.S. illegally. They widely rushed Border Patrol. Some agents were badly injured. Based on the comments made by Senator Schumer, we must have seen how dangerous and bad for our country the border is. It is not a manufactured crisis, as Nancy and Chuck has said before. As the fake news media and the Democratic partners tried to portray, he said he wants to meet. I will set up a meeting ASAP. We'll have to see how this all plays out because, as we know, Schumer has a different objective. Trump has a completely different objective. I don't believe Schumer is going to come in and say, hey, listen, we should do something. He's going to try to make it look like Trump is the problem, when in actuality, it is their policies that are the problem. And this has been going on for a very long time. But it was part of their agenda to bring these people in and ship them off to sanctuary cities. Now that Trump is holding them back, well, their plan isn't working anymore. So they're using a different tactic. We'll have to see how this plays out. Now, yesterday we mentioned a poll that was taken where they thought that racism was going to explode under Trump, and it turns out that is not the case. Well, NBC decided to do a poll, and what do they see? Well, a wide majority of people, they see improved race relations under Trump. Now, 11 southern states conducted by NBC over 2 weeks, we see the reason why the DNC, political leadership, and media are whipping up false accusations of racial anxiety against Trump, because all the polls and all the research is coming out now that it is actually the opposite of what they found. And this is what NBC has found. President Trump's approval rating in the South have ticked upward, with 54% of voters giving a thumbs up to the way he's handling his job. The survey of voters in 11 southern states found 38% said they strongly approve of the way Trump's handling his job, and 16% who said they somewhat approve. That's up slightly from a poll in September of last year, which put his total approval at 52%. More Southerners also said they think race relations in their states are improving. 20% said they're getting better, compared to 14% in September. The number of people who said relations are getting worse dropped significantly from 44% in September to 34% in the current poll. And you can see that it's going the opposite way. They thought it would be getting worse. It is not. So again, what is happening? The deep state, the mainstream media, they're trying to push a narrative. And that narrative is not the truth. The narrative is what they want. Just like when Trump was running against Clinton, their entire mission was to show that Trump was losing because that's what they wanted. That's what they had planned. And it didn't happen. Well, they want the country divided. They want the country divided by race. They want the country divided by political affiliation. They want the country divided by color. They want the country divided because it makes it easier to control the people. This way, you're fighting with each other and you're not looking at the problem. Guess what? The people of the United States are waking up and they're all starting to realize what the problem is. Now, Iran is out there and they have stated that they have 17 CIA agents that were caught in their country, and they're going to be sentencing some of them to death. Now, we know there are black sites in each one of these countries. We also know that Iran, still controlled by some of the members of the intelligence organizations, they're pushing their agenda very hard to get a war. I mean, think about the tankers. Think about what is happening with the CIA agents. They want the United States to get involved. Trump came out and tweeted the following: "The report of Iran capturing CIA spies is totally false. Zero truth. Just more lies and propaganda, like their shot-down drone, put out by a religious regime that is badly failing and has no idea what to do. Their economy is dead and will get much worse. Iran is a total mess." Think about North Korea. At the very end, when the peace deal was being made, North Korea was firing missiles. The mainstream media was out there saying that we could be going to war, that we'll be invading if they shoot one more missile. Why? Because the deal was being made. The same thing is happening in Iran. And the deep state, they know they've lost. This is their last-ditch attempt to start something, to try to get the United States involved, to cover up everything and bring us to war. It is not going to work. Let's get into some of Q's posts here. This is post 3458, gave us a Twitter link to Comey, and it says, "This week, an American patriot takes center stage. He doesn't want attention, has principles and follows them, and always tells the truth. What an opportunity for young people to be inspired. What a great opportunity for both parties in Congress to follow this example." Now, first of all, he's talking about Mueller. He's supposed to testify on the 24th. And we know what Comey does. He loves to spin everything and make it seem like this individual or any other individual is incredible. He truly has a gift of trying to convince people with wordplay. Q says, if A.G. Barr has access to all classified material, how does, and this is in kill brackets, all caps, bold, Mueller navigate? He navigates the way Barr wants him to navigate. Barr holds all the cards. He is in control. If Mueller provides false and or misleading testimony, will A.G. Barr be forced to declass all documents to ensure full public awareness of the truth? Yes. If he veers left or right from what he put in the report and starts going down a different path, Barr, which I do believe, will step in and declass and show the American people the truth. Do I think Mueller's going to do this? I don't think so. I think he's fighting for his life. And I think he knows that if he does go ahead and he does do this, that Barr will step in. But we need to remember that Weissman is behind closed doors. That's where the leaks are going to come from. Let me continue with Q. If Mueller defers to the original report, but D's fake news push a false narrative, knowing majority of the public did not watch the actual hearing, will A.G. Barr be forced to declass all documentation to ensure full public awareness of the truth? So what is Q saying? If they leak out the information that's behind closed doors with Weissman and they push a false narrative, will Attorney General Barr declass? I do believe he will, to set the record straight. Weissman and Mueller know this. Barr is in control. They don't have their block anymore. They don't have Rosenstein. He's no longer there. Barr has not recused himself. He's in full control. And they know that he will produce the information. Q says, be ready, brackets bold, Mueller. Be ready, James Comey, which is brackets bold. Be ready, traitors one and all. Q is talking to the players. Thank you for playing. FISA goes both ways, which means there could be a FISA warrant, which they're spying or surveilling, because it's legal, on these people. Think about it. If they presented the case that these people committed treason, and it's part of the investigation, and they show the evidence, they show the documentation, will the FISA judge grant them a warrant? Yes. Let's move on to post 3459. Q gives us a Twitter link to Maggie, New York Times. She says, he wasn't seeking to kill a mob boss. He was trying to help Trump, his lawyer says. The New York Times. So Maggie Haberman is pushing the idea that Anthony Comello's mental instability was caused by using internet message boards. He also had Q symbols on his hands. They are suggesting that those who follow Q are crazy, just like him. Q says, every single dirty tactic being deployed to stop the growth of this movement. Ask yourself a very simple question. Well, actually, he said, Q, why? Why are the biggest media companies in the world ... going after a LARP, going after a conspiracy? Now, Anon on the boards noticed something very interesting in the article, where it says, at Mr. Comello's first court appearance in March, he displayed symbols and phrases associated with QAnon scrawled on his hand in pen. He first discovered the conspiracy theory, Mr. Gottlieb said, in the weeks after Trump's 2016 election. Well, that's not true, because when did Q come online? October 28th, 2017. So they have the dates completely wrong. Then we have Emily, who tweeted out the following. Yep, they updated the article to try and paint him as a conspiracy nutcase prior to Q, and that's what sent him over the edge. They can't even keep the dates, much less their lies. These people are stupid. And she points out that they corrected the timing of when this individual went ahead and found out about Q. And they had to do this because they were completely wrong. Let's move on to post 3460. Q gives us a link to Fox News, and it says, Trump says Mueller shouldn't testify, warns hearing will backfire. Let me read a part of this article here. Trump argued Monday that Robert Mueller should not be given the chance to testify before Congress later this week, warning that the former special counsel's highly anticipated hearing appearance could be bad for him and for Democrats in the end. So why would it be bad for Mueller and for the Democrats? Because if Mueller goes off track, guess what Barr is going to do? Trump tweeted out the following. Highly conflicted Robert Mueller should not be given another bite at the apple. In the end, it will be bad for him and the phony Democrats in Congress who have done nothing but waste time on this ridiculous witch hunt. Result of the Mueller report, no collusion, no obstruction. But the question should be asked, why were all Clinton's people given immunity? And why were the text messages of Peter S. and his lover Lisa Page deleted and destroyed right after they left Mueller and after we requested them? This is illegal. Q says in brackets and bold, be ready. Now, what's very interesting, and it's being reported by Real Clear Investigation, the Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz will soon file a report with evidence indicating that Comey was misleading the president, even as he repeatedly assured Trump that he was not a target. The former director was secretly trying to build a conspiracy against the president, while at times acting as an investigative agent. 2 U.S. officials briefed on the Inspector General's investigation of possible FBI misconduct said Comey was essentially running a covert operation against the president, starting with a private defensive briefing he gave Trump just weeks before his inauguration. They said Horowitz has examined high-level FBI text messages and other communications indicating Comey was actually conducting a counterintelligence assessment of Trump during that January 2017 meeting in New York. In addition to adding notes of his meeting and phone calls with Trump to the official FBI case file, Comey had an agent inside the White House who reported back to FBI headquarters about Trump and his aides, according to other officials familiar with the matter. Now, Adam Schiff is out there, and he's panicking, already saying that this OIG report that Michael Horowitz is going to put out there, it's not good. It has things in there that aren't true. You can tell that he is panicking right now. These individuals should be panicking because the truth is about to come out. Post 3461. Q gives us a link to a tweet from John Henry, and it says, well, never seen this before. A stealth bomber from Whiteman AFB flying over the National Mall. And right over the Washington Monument, you see 2 fighters and a B-2 stealth bomber fly right over D.C. and fly off into the distance. Now think about this thing. Think about the B-2 bomber. Ring any bells? We go back to post 3410. Remember back then? This was July 10th, 2019. Stealth bomber. Date of first flight. Date of Mueller's testimony, ABCDE, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, B, brackets 2, Q. Remember, July 17th, first B-2 stealth bomber. Mueller is about to testify. A stealth bomber just flew over the Washington Monument. We don't see that every day. And who is the stealth bomber? Well, many of us, because it says B-2, Bill Barr. Post 3462. Anon puts up a tweet from Alex Wayne. Says news, the U.S. Army is engaged in a mysterious operation around Washington, D.C. And this is coming out of Bloomberg. It's attached to this tweet. Army lets slip that it's conducting secret operations around D.C. The question is, why is the Army practicing these secret operations? Is this about a roundup? Are they practicing to go after certain individuals? And the classified mission involves the installation of a sensitive, compartmented information facility at Davison Army Airfield in Virginia. So Q is sending us a message that something is about to happen and they're practicing. Let's move on to post 3463. Q gives us a prior drop. This is September 2nd, 2018, and it just says Ezra Cohen Watnick, Q. Now, Q reported a drop from last September that simply contained the name Ezra Cohen Watnick. Actually, Ezra Cohen Watnick, he's kind of mysterious. He's 31 years old, holds the intelligence portfolio on the National Security Council, but almost everything about him is a mystery. And what's very interesting about this is coming out of the Atlantic. There was one person that McMaster's couldn't get rid of. This is Ezra Cohen Watnick, the Senior Director for Intelligence Programs. McMaster's tried to remove him in March, but Trump, at the urging of Bannon and Jared Kushner, told McMaster's that Cohen Watnick was staying. And what's very interesting is that this individual has flown below the radar for the last 2 years. Q mentions him right after the military ops in D.C., preparing for roundups. So is this all connected? Does Ezra have all the information? Is he the one collecting all this? Maybe he's the stealth bomber, or maybe he's Q because he's been on the down low. He has access to all the intelligence. This is very interesting. And we can see the Patriots, they're getting prepared to go in. Now, do I think Mueller is going to go off track? I don't believe so. Do I believe the Dems are going to leak things out of the closed doors meeting with Weissman? Yes. Will this be enough for Barr to declass everything? Remember, timing is everything. I don't know if Barr wants to use the ammunition right now. I think they're holding on. But if they have to do it, and I believe this is why Q was out there telling the players, listen, if you do this, we're just going to release the truth. And I think this will hold back a lot of it because I think the Patriots are waiting for the exact right moment to use all of this. Remember, we have J.E., his whole case with underage children, all of this coming together. And I think they're waiting for the right opportunity. I want to go back to post 3195 for a sec because there was an article out of time, and it says how Ruth Bader Ginsburg found her voice. And what's very interesting about this is not the title, but below it. A new study of the Supreme Court Justice accent says something about the way we all talk. And the thing this article goes into is how Ruth Bader Ginsburg's accent has changed. She doesn't sound the same. And it seems like they're trying to get ahead of the story. And if we go back to post 3195, remember there was this short audio clip, and Q told us to listen at 1956, and it looks like something was spliced in or something was put in there. And it says, what is RBG's current state of health? Are pictures being avoided for a reason? Pics in, out of home, in, out of cars, easy. And I believe they're putting this story out there, just like all the other stories, to get ahead of what is coming. And they know if RBG is no longer around, Trump has another seat to fill. And I think they're trying to keep the illusion alive that she's still functional. I don't know if she's dead or not, but I do believe they're trying to make it seem like she's still functional, she still has the seat. And you can see how this article is trying to get ahead of saying how your accent could change if you're older and whatnot. And this tells me this is going to hit the news waves very, very soon. And as we can see, everything is starting to come together. Patriots are in full control. Roundup's coming soon. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.